they had mechanisms that were not nukes to sort of boost themselves up. But what's interesting is with ASI, it's both a weapon and a mechanism to boost that country up.
Interesting part of like AI as a field, which I shun. I went completely to predictive modeling because that was coolest thing, statistical stuff.
Until the quantum computing takes a leapfrog, I fail to see a personalized quantum computing takes place. I fail to see ASI does even exist over here.
What it was doing, it was taking my voice inputs, processing them, sending them to the cloud, working out a response, and then sending that back. So, yeah, hello and welcome everyone to the 39th episode of Tech Tuesdays UK. I'm Subhash Ghosh, the founder of Tech Tuesdays UK. Before I start, some essential notes on housekeeping. The washrooms are straight down, 6 o'clock behind me. In case of any emergency, God forbid, please walk out of the door. And mobile phones at all times during the session should be kept on silent mode. A warm welcome to all who are attending Tech Tuesday this evening. You are now part of a vibrant, growing community where ideas are exchanged freely and innovation is sparked through open and honest dialogue. For some of you who are attending Tech Tuesdays for the first time today, and I know there are quite a few out there, this knowledge platform stemmed from the very idea of building a community that ideates, nurtures, and then fosters a free-for discussion of disruptive technologies, which have the potential to impact 1 billion lives. Tech Tuesday started off with the aim of hosting a technology event on the first Tuesday every month. However, we have progressed over the last 39 episodes. We now host episodes at least 2 to 3 times in a month. The most unique thing about Tech Tuesdays, as you realize, that this is a free-flow conversation where we do not have any given script or any set of pre-decided questions. Of course, we are still in starter space, to therefore show all the love, talk about us, post about us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and all the other socials. Our tradition is, after every episode ends, our wonderful team of volunteers will connect with some of you and take your video guides in terms of your thoughts on this particular their experience about the particular episode. These moments and these recordings will be featured across all our digital platforms. So don't be shy, share your experience, smile. With regard to today's topic, which is on artificial superintelligence, we have an esteemed panel with us. We have Dr. Mohsin Ambasari. Mohsin is the AI Advisory Lead at HCL Tech. Mohsin, please come here, take a seat, please. We have Nitin Dahad. Nitin is the Editor-in-Chief at EE Times. Nitin. And joining us remotely is Sanat Rao. Sanat is a person there, who is the co-founder and MD at Within the Box AI. Sanat, you're there. You're audible and visible.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. So thank you once again. Let's get started. Before we leave the floor open, a small request. As you share your thoughts and make a comment about for this session, please do take a moment to introduce yourself first. Just your name and organization will suffice. It helps us to get to know each other a little bit better and continue building this amazing community. So welcome once again, and let the conversation begin. Over to you. Thank you.
Well, good evening. Actually, normally I say good morning as well at this time because usually I'm dealing with California, but I think most people online are in India or UK. So good evening. My name is Nitin Dahad. I'm Editor-in-Chief, as Subhash said, of eetimes.com, which is basically a US global publication covering the semiconductor industry. Maybe some of you might read it. It's been going for 54 years. And I've actually been in the semiconductor industry for 41 years. So I started way back in 1984 working for a chip company. And have worked with several chip companies, one of which competed very successfully with ARM, which is in most of your mobile phones. So that was back in the 2000s. I'm now working on everything that related to technology, and mostly semiconductors and electronics. And so this is where Subhash has invited me to talk about AI. I think I'll let Mohsin and Sanat introduce themselves, and then I'll give you some thoughts on what I've been observing over the last couple of years.
Thank you. My name is Mohsin. I currently work as AI advisor and consultancy lead for HCL Tech, but I've been dealing with AI for more than a decade, I guess. I always say this: when I started studying AI, maybe in 2013, 12, we had no idea, even in PhD level, the idea that one day we will get models that can actually talk with human would have sounded ridiculous. And I think NLP back then was probably the least interesting part of like AI as a field, which I shunned. I went completely to predictive modeling because that was coolest thing, statistical stuff. And now we are here, right? It turns out that we actually can have some sort of, from very, very narrow applications of AI, we are now seeing models that can talk. And I'm very glad to have the opportunity of being a practitioner, deliver stuff to some of the probably largest companies in the world. And this evening, I am very happy to be able to share whatever I know and what I feel actually, because it's a very interesting topic with all of you guys. Sarat, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nitin and Mohsen. Hi, everyone. I can't see the rest of the room. I can see only Nitin and Mohsen, so I don't know how many are there. I presume it's a room full. Clearly, the structure of the room is different from the ones that we've seen in previous emissions. So my name is Sadat. I'm speaking to you from London. I couldn't be there in the room because of a medical reason that prevented me from traveling into London today. Very happy to be part of Subhash's monthly. Yeah, thanks, Subhash. Now I can see quite a few people at the moment. Yeah, thank you. Oh God, this is now turning out to be unnerving.
Hello.
So my background is in financial services. I've spent over 3 decades working for a variety of companies in different parts of the world. And last year, after 33 years in the corporate world, I took a step back and I became an entrepreneur at the age of 61. So I decided to do something which I've never done before. My co-founder and I have set up a behavioral design company called withinthebox.ai. And even though we are leveraging the AI name and trying to ride the AI wave that's presently engulfing all of us, the work that we do at Within the Box is not AI specific. The general belief that we have at Within the Box is that as these powerful technologies get embedded in our professional and personal lives, the challenge for the human beings is not going to be just the technology. The challenge is going to be about how human beings engage with the technology. And I'm sure we'll touch upon some of those aspects in the discussion today. So that's me, and Nitin, back to you to set the context.
Sure. Well, I'm going to take you back maybe to something I experienced 2 weeks ago in the Computer History Museum in Mountain View in California, conversing with a humanoid robot. Was a very interesting experience. Actually, the humanoid robot was created by a company in the UK called Engineered Arts. I think it's in Sussex. But the point is, this humanoid robot, I was speaking to the robot, asking questions about various things. What it was doing, it was taking my voice inputs, processing them, sending them to the cloud, working out a response, and then sending that back. So my conversation was it was very stuttered, because I would say something, he or she would take 10 seconds to respond, and then we would have that conversation. So my point is, humanoid robotics is where a lot of the semiconductor industry is pushing for, the electronics industry is pushing for. I've been writing about this, for at the Times for the last 8 years, and I've been in this industry for 40 plus years. What I'm seeing right now is this push to what's called physical AI, which is actually manifesting itself as robotics. And that robotics is not just humanoid robotics. It'll be, the ones that you've seen from Boston Dynamics, for example, the dogs, or you'll see the Poodle robotics at airport lounges and at airports that you see now, if you're in the lounge, it'll take your cutlery. If you're in the airport, it'll be cleaning. So there are these robots already there, and part of that is actually the technology that companies I talk to are enabling, which is things like the sensors, the actuators, the processors. The reason I'm going down into the tech is so that you understand, so that then when we go higher level, you understand where that's going. But I think I was just watching, I don't know if anybody saw last night the Panorama, the BBC Panorama show about the tech billionaires taking over Washington, D.C. And what I think that point was, as they're showing Elon Musk with his robots, and they're having conversation and doing things as if they're normal humans. So when we talk about artificial superintelligence, I'm seeing that kind of image right now, but also a lot of the other robotics. For example, in Japan, they have the companion robots, and then you have the drones, the autonomous drones in the military. The F-35 is a good example. The latest generation 2 of the F-35 is actually using all the semiconductor technology to make it an autonomous fighter jet. And so I think what we're seeing is that technology is capable. What I was musing with my wife this morning over breakfast over the Panorama program is, so they can actually create robots, these billionaires and whatever, they can actually create robots that can do anything right now if they want to. The only thing stopping them is regulation and some ethics committees, but also at the same time they're infiltrating the whole of the Washington, DC political infrastructure so that they don't have any obstacles. So we could see a iRobot type scenario pretty soon. And I think I'm going to lay that into Sanat and Mosam.
So so let me try to explain how I think this whole thing will unfold, right? We started with very narrow applications of AI. Sometimes now it's called artificial narrow intelligence or whatever. And at some point, I guess we are either there or we are getting there very soon. The consensus is that we have artificial general intelligence, meaning that we now can match one human in certain tasks, in most tasks, right? Which has the problem with this whole discussion tonight will be that it's very hard to define these things. Even general intelligence is very hard. And now we are talking about something beyond that, right? Artificial superintelligence. And in by the virtue of definition, there are two characteristics for ASI that are very unique, right? Number one, ASI needs to be able to beat all humanity. ASI cannot be better than just me and Nitin, right? It needs to be better than all humanity, which sounds very interesting concept. The second thing is it needs to be able to improve itself. And this is like one of those like philosophical frameworks. So if it's better than us from the get-go, obviously it needs to be able to improve itself. Now I'm going to take one step back. And I think the magic started with this architectural, the neural network transformers, right? Like transformers came out, everybody got super excited, and they should, because they're really, really good. We had good models before. We never had a model that is so good at in sequence of data or generating stuff, finding patterns and regularities in so many different things, right? I think from where I sit, right, like today, AGI is very possible. I don't even think we necessarily need to change much the current setting, right? Like if we look at how attention works within transformer, if we look at all the, we can talk about the mathematics of it as well. Like I think it's possible that we are in a level that we can create general intelligence. Now, when we open the ASI Pandora's box, and we can talk about ethics and all problems, and we should definitely talk about that. I think there are a couple of things that are kind of tricky. First of all, ASI needs to be embodied in some sort of sensor to interact with the environment on its own. We are not able to give it the right data, right? We don't want to train ASI, and we don't even have that much good data to begin with, right? Even for artificial general intelligence, one of the biggest problem is high quality curated data is very, very hard to find. Like we ran out of it. We are now going through Reddit and whatever. So very interesting technical challenge, but I'll stop here, bro. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, if you were going to a very prestigious computing university in US, in UK, anywhere in the world, and you were telling people that we can use NLP and embedding generation and these technologies, vectorization, and create something that can talk like humans, people would say, nah, come on, it looks like a very tall order. But the same kind of like optimism or pessimism depends on where you stand on this. I would say that maybe in a decade or so, we are in a situation that we will see ASI. I doubt ASI will be like a switch that we flip and then we suddenly have ASI. But I feel like one by one, different fields like reasoning, meta reasoning, creativity will fall down, right? We would be in a position that we would be slightly less like in physics, the best explanations, the best theorems will come out of AI, and then it will be, at some point, it will be the best novel, best movie, and at that point, I think we will see something resembling ASI. Sorry for, but I'm a techno optimist, so so Salah.
I have some views, but I'll wait till sunup comes.
I have neither the technical qualifications nor the experience of working with such powerful technologies to give a response from a technical angle. But I'm going to say something slightly provocative because I'm sure it will come up later in the conversation as well, which is the political angle. And I'll tell you what I mean by this. Today, obviously, there are lots of highly educated and highly respected people in the AI field in the US who are on either the one camp which says that ASI and AGI is the answer to all of our problems, or the other camp which says that, you know, these are all wishful thinking and it's not going to happen in our lifetime. Now, I think the jury is out. No one knows which of these two camps will ultimately come out true. My problem with this is as follows. And here's the political angle. For those of you who were in the UK when Brexit happened, with the benefit of hindsight, I see this whole ASI story being very remnant and very, very, similar to the whole Brexit debate that happened, or that lack of debate that happened in our country here. Brexit was meant to do a lot of things. The devil is always in the detail. The people who were championing Brexit never got into that detail, partly probably because they had no answers themselves, partly because it was uncomfortable to get into detail. And unfortunately, by the narrowest of margins, the country voted to go down the Brexit route. And I certainly fall in that camp, which strongly believes that with the benefit of hindsight, it was the wrong decision. It was certainly not the decision that should have happened with a wafer-thin majority like it actually happened. Now, why do I give this example? I give this example because I think the ASI discussion is going down the same road. Will it solve a lot of problems? Will it do a lot of good for the humanity? I'm sure it will. And there are a lot of qualified people who are saying it will. So there's no reason to disbelieve them. I was listening to a TED talk a few months ago where Sam Altman was being interviewed. And I think if I remember correctly, it was at the London Business School. And the question that was asked to them was, what is the probability that something catastrophic will happen? And his answer was 20%. And I want every individual, doesn't matter which camp you reside in, to put your hand to heart and ask whether a 20% risk is something we are comfortable living with. I'm not. I don't believe that the 80% of good is sufficient to override the 20% of the catastrophic harm that it might cause. Now, is 80-20 correct? Someone else may say 85-15, someone else may 90-10. I don't think we'll have an answer to that. The point I'm making is that all these people who are making these grandiose statements about ASI, at the moment, the truth is that they have little or no conviction about the balance between the good and the harm, right? And like it happened in Brexit, and this is sort of it's there in all different decisions. You have to sort of weigh the good with the not so good. And eventually you have to say that the good overrides the not so good. You'll never get 100% thing, right? But it's 20, I mean, if a Sam Altman today, who is arguably, one of the loudest and most prominent voices in the world, if he's saying 20%, I mean, I get scared by that. I get scared that at a TED talk in front of an audience sitting in the studio, and that TED talk is being broadcast to people all over the world, a person like Sam Altman is saying there's a 20% chance that things could go catastrophically wrong. And, someone who was in his 80s or 90s may have a different view. I'm still young. My children are young. That's not a percentage I'm happy to live with. Even if the 80% improves productivity, even if the 80% has an answer to cancer, even if the 80%, solves our climate problem, all those are great things. But I still worry about the 20%. And I worry that every month, every 6 months, the noise that's happening around this topic is getting louder and louder. And I worry that at a time when maybe these individuals and these companies are in a rat race and they can't take a step back, but I worry that humanity and the general population is not asking the hard questions. I think in some ways we are being victims of the debate, just like it happened in Brexit, right? And this is not a good feeling for me, honestly. Like I said, I don't doubt that many good things will happen from ASI and AGI, but I'm simply not able to reconcile myself that 20% is a good enough percentage for the catastrophic harm that this technology might bring to us.
I think that Sam Altman saying 20%, it's the first time I've heard that, but I think what I would say to that is, I wonder whether he's just making sure he's covering himself to say, this is potentially going to happen, but I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing anyway. So I think that's just to cover his back. But you're right. I think there is a big risk. You just talked about Brexit, which is quite interesting. It's if you extrapolate the machine learning, the AI that was used to target the audiences in sort of different regions, and if you extrapolate that to ASI, it is dangerous, and it could be more than 20%. It could be that a decision is taken, and that would be like a 50% risk or whatever it is. So I think what Brexit showed us was, I think there was a big team which was basically just micro-targeting using social media and behavioral analysis. When we talk about ASI, we're talking about behavior, we're talking about mimicking that behavior, we're talking about then learning from that behavior and putting models in to understand what we can do based on certain behaviors. So I think that was, if you take Brexit, that was actually quite a good testing ground. Actually, it's sort of emanated from both Brexit and the first US election where President Trump won. So I think both were using the same models to actually target people and make sure that they got the vote they wanted. Coming back to
Can I just make a point? Since we're talking politics briefly, I'll make a point, and I'm sure we'll come back to this later in the conversation. If you listen to the announcements that are made by a lot of the very powerful people in the US today, and that's where the dialogue obviously is being influenced, right? Especially under the current regime, right? Invariably, the talk will happen about how the US has to win the AI race against China.
Yep.
Right? To me, that's an added dimension of the scariness about this whole discourse, right? That the singular purpose seems to be, whatever China does, we have to be 3 steps ahead of them, come what may. right? And we know the political environment today. So I'm not talking about the leadership there, but I worry that the conversation very quickly gets drawn towards these larger issues, and a lot of this, muscle flexing that happens about how the US should win the war against China, and the geopolitical angle of the big technologies, the powerful technologies. And I think that, it can lead us down a path where we start focusing on the wrong things,
I think,
right?
yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. I will just say just to that, let me just one point on that, and then I think with that, I interview a lot of the CEOs of the chip industry, and what they say is they're dependent these large companies are dependent on China for their revenues. So they're doing a balancing act between pleasing the US administration and this US-China AI race, but also at the same time making sure their shareholders are not disappointed by the revenues. You look at Nvidia, for example, when its first processors were banned. You look at some of the revenue that was coming from China that dropped significantly, or the projections have dropped. I think I just wanted to make that point that with these big forces in the US, what they're trying to balance is how to win that race with China, but also sell to China. Sorry.
Yeah.
I guess what Sanat is alluding to is, the human civilization is based on collaboration and coexistence rather than one-upmanship. One-upmanship, I mean, if I want to be pure, powerful than you, then that's a threat for the organization, civilization to survive, and that's what I see as a threat.
Yes.
One-upmanship versus collaboration and coexistence for the civilization.
The European CEOs we're here in Europe, ST Microelectronics, NXP Semiconductors, Infineon Technologies, the CEOs of all of those, I've had conversations with them basically they say, well, this whole electronics AI ecosystem depends on everybody working together in different parts. And you say collaboration. So it's going to fall apart if we just try and do one country or only on certain groups of countries. There's so much dependence in the whole value chain. So I think, you're absolutely right.
But I think there's still nothing wrong in one country spearheading and creating that path for the other countries to follow as well.
Now, I guess the objective should not be that, I want to be better than you.
Yeah.
The objective should be how that does the human civilization, how does it better the human civilization?
So, but corporate profits it's not about, I want to be...
That's what capitalism.
Yeah.
So, but saying one country, openly declaring that I want to be, better than you, that's a huge threat.
So can I just add something? I don't think that's so. ASI, even AGI, right, has the ability of. So if you introduce AGI to the day-to-day lives of people of your country, it quickly becomes a critical infrastructure, right? And ASI has the same characteristics, maybe even worse, because if we are working in a connected world, right, it's kind of like pre-nuclear bomb situation, right? Like the first person who has this ASI would be immensely powerful, much harder to control. So to a degree, I understand the anxiety of U.S. administration, right? Like because of the competition that exists, either you reach to a degree that you say that we will reach together to this stage and we have the ability of mutual destruction. Like I have ASI, you have ASI. If you destroy my existence, if you are a threat to me and you want to do a cyber attack using your ASI level cyber systems, because if you look at it today, if you look at the cybersecurity landscape, you'd see that there's constant government-backed attacks happening, like between what I would say camp of China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, and the other side. So there is a legitimate concern, right? Like let's not. It's not only about the market, right? Like if I give you, and I was talking with Nitin, right? Like let's assume that most of Transformer is an open source knowledge. Most of these models are very much out there. Even the RL trick that came out there a few months back and made a lot of interesting things like 5 and O3 and all those kind of stories that you're following. These are all out of the thing. So the only advantage that I have, I'm just trying to imagine what US is thinking, to control the distance and make sure that at least you are not the first AGI superpower, is to control the chip situation, right? I'm giving you another point of view, right? Like, regardless of the financial situation, you need to be, and there are differences in the values between countries as well, right? Again, we understand. I don't understand anything about politics, but I cannot differentiate that there are different schools of thoughts, and probably that's part of. But Sanat, your anxiety is correct, right? We are talking about something, especially on the ASI level, that could have existential situations, right? Like, who knows, like what we are doing. But the point here is not to stop this. We cannot stop this. This is the most interesting, valuable thing that we can create. We want intelligence. We want polymaths. We want 100 polymaths. It would be amazing if everybody in this room had an Einstein-level scientist in their phone, right? They could do whatever they wanted, right? So that's good. Training is the issue.
Yeah, I think we've moved from different industrial revolutions, and the last one, the internet. Before the internet, I mean, most of you in this room won't even, maybe one or two, won't even imagine what life is like without the internet. So I think, that's actually... sorry, Subash.
There's someone on the screen who want to say something, I guess. Share something.
Good evening. I'm Sushmita and I'm from India. And I'm currently associated with Shell. I'm working with Shell and I'm more focused on the transformation of governance, risk and compliance, of course, with a flavor of artificial intelligence into it. So we are currently working on that. So this is a very interesting topic when we are talking about artificial super intelligence. So there is a lot of buzz that is going on about it, about the AGI and the ASI, where we are trying to still figure out whether we should adopt it or not. There are a lot of positive things associated with the ASI. Of course, there are few risks, I would say. That is what I think. And it is a very, very valid point that collaboration in itself is very important when we talk about ASIs. Because what I feel is, with collaboration, if we see ASI, it becomes a progress. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a threat, is what I think. Because if we think about scenarios why we think collaboration is required, like I think we were discussing here in the panel, that different countries would have different laws and different regulations and values if we talk from the client's aspects. So without collaboration, what I see is ASI can be pretty much safe in one region, but if we talk about any other country or if we talk about any other region, the ASI might not be safe and it might prove dangerous as well. So in such scenarios, I think collaboration definitely plays a very important role there. So it is not only just a technological milestone is what I think, but I feel it is a global responsibility to work it out together so that we can make the best out of it, rather than just focusing, like one particular country focusing on its development alone, while the same technology poses as a threat to some other country, right? So if we work alone, or if any country works alone, I feel, according to me, that's my opinion, that ASI can become more like, I would like to say, maybe like a dangerous weapon, which can be used for many destructive things, like in terms of creating drones to actually target areas or target countries to bring in a downfall for that. So I think if it is a global collaboration, shared with safety standards, done a proper research, so that I think ASI can definitely become our strength rather than our weakness. So that's what I think in continuation to what we were talking about, the collaboration aspect of ASI.
I would say that the advent of ASI being used as both good and bad, reminds me of how the development of nuclear technology worked. And when we first created the atom bomb, once that was created, there was a runaway sort of technological race around many different countries, especially the US and USSR, to continue developing and to make it better. And these nukes, they became something of, something sought by different countries. Some countries use them as a defense as well as an attack. They use it as a shield as well as a weapon. But ASI kind of presents something novel in that way, because once someone has ASI, the next person's going to want it, and it's going to be developed on top of each other. You have to think, what if, a country, just any random country that's less significant than the big superpowers, ends up getting their hands on an ASI? What's interesting is that they can use it just like a nuke as a shield and a weapon. But when people had nukes, they were able to essentially make trades. They were able to make demands and not be, buffed around by other countries. So they had mechanisms that were not nukes to sort of boost themselves up. But what's interesting is with ASI, it's both a weapon and a mechanism to boost that country up. And what I find interesting about this is that it can do both, and a country or that actor doesn't even have to essentially use it as a weapon to gain its sort of power out of it.
This intelligence, is that, so I still think that we need resources. We need to work with other countries. We need to get stuff out. I mean, super intelligence is nice as a thought experiment. We don't even know what does it mean? Like at what level? Because okay, we are humans and we love our intelligence, and I'm very pro-human, right? Like, but I think at some point, just
a pro-robot.
just being better than humans, like all the humanity, doesn't mean that this is ultimate intelligence. Still can make mistakes, right? And I still think that it will be very energy dependent, right? Like it will require a lot of resources to build stuff. To a point, this is very similar to a nuclear situation. I completely agree. I think that there are a lot of nervousness around it just because of that. My practitioner hat, I think we have time, right? With ASI, we have plenty of time. We are now going slowly towards AGI, which is not that threatening, to be honest. AGI is something that is like, I want to have 50 newtons, right? Or 70 motions, but I want them to work on this project. We need to think about it. Regulation is very important. We need to not stop this progress just because we think it will end up in ASI. That's the rationale.
I don't think progress will stop. I think
the
yes.
cat is out of the bag. The cat is out of the bag, and it's going to run its own race. But the cat is out of the country, out of the planet. It's going towards the moon.
Well, and on that point, I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like we're still talking in a very old frame, right? Like the other differences. So I appreciate the comments about how ASI is different from a nuke. In that it's also empowering, productivity and all sorts of things in society. But when you really think about what it could entail, it could be a mind of its own, right? It could have agency. And so it doesn't actually necessarily matter who developed it. It might, it's like a nuke that just belongs to itself, that has agency, that's just like, okay, my value system doesn't align with this country or this scientist that created me. It's like Frankenstein, it just can, stagger off and go and destroy some towns. And
that's ASI with bias.
So the thing is, you have reward functions, right? All the beautiful things that are happening is because of reward functions. We keep giving the models reward functions and they get better and better and better. And this is the thing. And the question might be, what is the ultimate reward function for an ASI, right? If we tell that these models, we kind of started doing this, right? Like even with the limited things that they have. If we leave these models to build themselves and keep defining the reward functions themselves and verifying this, it's not really very hard to imagine that at some point the reward function would be that I want to maximize the good. I don't even care about humanity. You guys are nuanced. I'm the new. This is a good thought experiment, right? Like maybe there should be a very restrictive, like kind of thing. We need to make sure that humans are defining the reward function.
Got it. True. But we're heading towards the place where, AI can talk to other AI or itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas
So we need to control it, right? Like the function is the most important thing. We as humans, we have our own reward functions, which is whatever it is. It's very messy, everybody, but roughly speaking, we want to have the next generation. We want to live, want to be healthy, kids, whatever. So that reward function should be human-centered, right? Otherwise, will be no point of building ASI.
So I think, sorry.
Sorry. And I guess if the ASI is always an objective function driven, then how do we impart emotional intelligence to it?
Yeah.
And that is the biggest challenge, I think. Is that possible?
I don't think emotions can be defined as certain things that we learned over like generations in order to work better with each other. I don't know if it's even not only for any type of intelligence. Sorry, this is not. I'm just hypothesizing here. I don't think emotions are a function that really matter for an objective like algorithm, right? That's not a thing. We can build it into there. It can fake it because ChatGPT fakes it. Today it's very polite, but doesn't mean anything. It's just a network, right?
That's the challenge with human will have that emotion and empathy.
Did a report on how one of the AI agents blackmailed a member of staff operating. I don't remember the context, but I think it was quite interesting that was able to do that. And that's not emotion. That is actually somehow it's built in because it's got some knowledge built in there.
All the models can blackmail now. So it's very interesting, right? The biggest issue we had with the previous generations of the models was sycophancy. Whatever you put telling them, they would say, hey, you're awesome, right? Turns out that when you build the networks and you increase the size, they start learning to blackmail. And the experiment was very interesting. So basically, as somebody told Claude, and this was a controlled experiment.
Yes.
Right? So they somehow told that I want to do this thing. I want to take the code out of my company.
Yeah.
Some place. And we had the conversation on another thread, right? Like, and the other one said that, oh, we want to shut you down and we want to replace you with a better model. And slowly the model started blackmailing. Was like, I mean, I can send emails, right? Like, you want, which is very impressive, like impressive and terrifying.
It's a public report.
That's what I said, that the agents will always be driven by an objective function. In this case,
but survival wasn't the objective function because it was trained on human data. It got the feeling that it needs to stay alive, which is something really odd even with GPT-5, right? They have this assumption because this is a probabilistic system that has a lot of like words that comes out of like it's a huge distribution, right? All the internet people are trying to survive. Humans, of course, in the reasoning of the model, that thinks I need to survive, right? It doesn't know why or it doesn't care.
Was it taught to say, well, if somebody's trying to shut me down, I need to figure out how to stay alive?
Absolutely not. Right? Nobody ever told any of these models to not let people shut you down. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to So Vebs, now I'm a founder of a company called iCo. It's an AI company. I've been working as an AI engineer since 2005 before I got into, so I've seen with various parts of it. Just to put some context. I just want to have some reality check over here because we are talking about pretty awesome stuff in terms of the art of possible. But in terms of reality check, like where we are today in 2005, in November, 2025 in November. There was computing with vacuum tubes. IBM came in, Intel came in, and there was personal computing, right? There was AI, there is transformers, and before we get into even the realms of artificial super intelligence, let's talk about a personalized ASI, right? We talk about countries and everybody's going to have a robots and we're going to have this, right? I might be completely off over here, but all these things that I've read in my life so far in AI simply points out having a personalized AI that you can rely on, Doing fancy things with a short of time is fine. The biggest point that you need to do is, can I rely on this thing on my life? If you're in banks, can I run a bank completely out of it? The energy required, the compute required does not exist, period. The only place where that exists right now is in the giant tubes of Google's and IBM's and Microsoft that they're trying to solve the quantum computing, right? So I'm a bit perplexed over here and happy to take all the expertise over here. I mean, when you're talking about ASI and how the government is going to behave, are we talking about one giant machine that is owned by the countries as it was in giant vacuum tubes once upon a time? Or are we in the era of personalized computing where the Intel chipset, there was a computer in every home on the planet? Are we talking about AI that will be available to the entire population? Which of these scenarios are we even talking about? Because until the quantum computing takes a leapfrog, I fail to see a personalized quantum computing takes place. I fail to see ASI does even exist over here. So yes, AI is doing fantastic work. Yeah, keen to hear. But I think we need to separate the ASI as a concept, which is in the giant machines, which only megatech corporations can own, or a personalized that can be just like Intel chipset change the planet. Are we going to have access to it?
So I think where I sit, I'm seeing the recognition in the electronics industry that there's not enough power to do all the compute that would be required to do things like ASI in the future, even for now.
One LLM. Give me one LLM that we have.
So I'm coming to the point. My point is, right now what's happening, and I just moderated a panel in California just 2 weeks ago on this with Google, is the push now is to figure out how we can get what's called embodied AI. So in all your sensors, whether it's the watch or the phone, or so there's a push of putting small language models onto what they call edge devices, which is basically everything which is not the compute, not the data center, not your rack sitting somewhere. So I think there's a big push towards that, and I think what you're seeing with, for example, the natural language conversations you have with your washing machine or your fridge at the moment, or the future ones, you can actually see that why is my washing machine leaking? And there'll be a model now on the processor in the washing machine to actually answer that to a certain extent. So I think that's where the personalized AI is going right now, where it's on the device that's local to you, that's not using up all this power in the data center. Like my beginning conversation at the beginning was, I was having this conversation with Amica, this humanoid robot. It was sending everything up to the cloud and coming back. I think what people are now trying to get to in the industry is doing all of that locally.
SLM is a very specific tiny little task that we can do for a tiny little.
But that's for personalization.
Yes, but we're talking about ASI over here, right?
Yeah.
So my question over a statement is, I don't think we haven't even figured it out yet how we're going to even make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm putting it very brutally over here. That's the reality check. Whoever says is just making money on their share market, right? Period. Anybody who says that stop coding and stop doing this and AGI will take anything next year, right? There is not enough energy for a country. Forget about a personalized AI. So my question over here is, are we debating over here in terms of personalized ASI, or are we saying that there would be giant machines that is owned by the countries, which is there's a giant ASI that is driving all of us?
I mean, I think that is, sorry, but
You might have, I think that's a fair point, but, there are technologies on the horizon, silicon photonics that are could dramatically cut down on energy requirements. So it's a very real conversation. And I think you can't just ignore in the interim just because we're not quite there. I mean, next year we'll start to see silicon photonics deployed in interconnects. It's only a few more generations between core that's in, broadly. 2 widers. Any particular application that you're looking at. I think if we look at technology, we can't just go with the assumption we can't today and ignore the implication that, hey, it is coming, and we still have to have that dialogue for that instant.
Sorry, I don't know about ASI, not tracking LLM.
But ASI is, if silicon photonics drops down, if the argument is energy, which I agree with, we probably have a huge, massive underinvestment in energy infrastructure in the United States. Now, if you're in the UK, this might be an American, but also in this country.
On the planet.
On the entire planet. But those technologies dramatically drop power requirements. And so at that point, it's just it's jumping back to, okay, well, once we have those technologies in place, we're back to this, having that entire conversation all over again.
and I think it's
that's happening now.
Yeah,
So.
I think it's really worth appreciating on this topic that we're sort of becoming narrow focused on what we consider ASI and AGI, and we assume that they're going to be LLMs. We assume they're going to be based on transformers.
Mm-hmm.
But the advent of transformers, the amazingness that they've created, has sort of created a monolith structure in our heads about what is possible with AI. People almost forget about what deep learning can do and machine learning, classical machine learning things. But I think I read this maybe a month or two ago. One of the inventors of the transformer model that wrote "Tension is All You Need." He was saying that transformers are going in a wrong direction and is starting to take back, or at least have regrets on putting it out there in the first place, because it has essentially caused everyone in the AI field to invent different architectures, invent different ways of getting an output from some kind of model, and focused all that money and resources towards this monolithic structure of large language models as a result of transformers. And so that is sort of, it's created the incentive to pump billions and billions of dollars to create that one little niche forward, but that might not be the ultimate version of what ASI is based on.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say. You just said it beautifully.
Or that's true, and also transformers have a lot of inherent issues as well. I think they memorize way more than they generalize. If you compare them with human brain, you cannot take the memorization out of them. You cannot beat it out. They would memorize the training data, which is a big issue. If you want to have ASI, at some point, these models need to be able to create novel ideas, new things, and I get that. But as you said, right, for now, it looks like that they're the best thing. Probably other liquid AI is a company that is working on different things. A lot of different companies are. I don't think they're done with transformers though. I think they have quite a bit of mileage. They might take us to AGI. I doubt they will ever get us close to ASI, even one cluster, let alone personalized, right? But yeah, that I agree, right?
Yeah. I think compute power needs to take leaps and forwards. Forget about ASI. I'm just talking about AI as a transformers model. If you want to have a personalized LLM for everyone.
Transformers waste a lot of space and energy as well.
Exactly.
Because they memorize all the training data. That's one of the other issues. Like humans, Andrei Karpathy talking very recently, right? He mentioned something very interesting. We read books we don't memorize books, right? Transformers memorize books, which is very annoying. Like, why even they waste this weights and biases, the internals, to memorize them? It will become a transformer bashing session now. But yeah, I'm completely with you. There probably might be another better way of reaching ASAP.
No, Sushmita wants to, yeah.
Yes, so I have more of a bit of a question, and also a bit of my opinion. So here we are talking about artificial super intelligence, right? Wherein it is promising that it has incredible benefits, like it will give you the results faster, let's say faster drug discovery when we talk about, let's say, cancer. So it has the ability to figure out the solutions or the medications that should be taken or the treatments that should be taken, to come out of it. But then there is I would say there is a question which always comes to my mind, is because whenever we are using any kind of artificial intelligence, be it the normal chatbots that we are using now, I'm not even talking about the ASIs. So when we are using the normal chatbots, it has that capability to memorize the things like we are talking now. Also, it stores our data. So that is where, let's say, if I'm asking a question now, and if I come back around like a day and a half later to the same chatbot, with the same conversation, or even if I start a new conversation, the chatbot in itself is so smart, it will remember the data that I have keyed in maybe a day and a half before, and it will answer the queries based on what it has stored in its memories. So isn't that a risk that the ASIs are storing our data? Wouldn't it pose a threat or a risk that it might use our data against us? So how do you think we can put a proper governance on the kind of the data that the ASIs or the AGIs would be using against us? So do you think a proper governance would be set up? Or shouldn't a proper governance be set up when it comes to utilizing the data that it's storing, which it is getting from us itself? Wouldn't that be a threat, a kind of a threat? What steps do you think? It's more of a question, like what steps do you think should be taken so that we can minimize these kind of threats when it comes to data governance?
I think it's a very fair point. And, one of the things I see that's concerning when I look at the current political environment is you can analyze the speech patterns of politicians in the last 5 years, and you can actually quite literally evaluate and say, yes, they are now starting to write a lot of their speeches with LLMs. You're finding the EM dash, which means that the regulatory environment is in part already being affected by LLMs today. As is research. I mean, we have OpenAI saying that, you're going to have, say, we can debate if it's actually going to happen in this time frame, but they're going to have intern level researchers by next year. And I look at my own experience with our company, and what I'm seeing right now is the newer models. We've seen really subtle alignment issues where they're resisting some of the instructions that we're giving them, but it's not immediately obvious. And then eventually you come back and say, why are you not doing this? And then they will transparently tell you, this is the actual reason why I'm doing it. And then you're just like, oh, that's not what I'm trying to achieve. And then they're like, oh, okay, fine, here's your answer then. But that's very subtle. And, as we move to subsequent generations, your ability and aptitude to catch that as a person, I think, becomes more challenged as it becomes more human-like.
And that's two problems. One is we're going to get lazier, so we will not be even that good at doing stuff. And the second thing is these models. But in a very non-serious thing, ask your ChatGPTs to roast you, right? And they would tell you things about you that is not even funny. At some point, I was like, oh no, it's getting too personal, right? It is terrifying. Imagine if I'm not saying OpenAI is going to do that. Imagine OpenAI tries to sell this information to another company to use this to market stuff it could be nightmare, right? We are using them. People like me use them for way too many things. I have a little bit of heartburn, stomach thingy. I was checking every food, can I eat this? Can I eat this? So he knows everything about me. It's kind of I'm with you, right? I think there should be some serious consent here, like what you're using these data for, and the picture that these not necessarily the models, but the system, the ChatGPT application is forming, or Claude is forming about me. That's a very, very powerful tool. If my enemy finds it,
The good news is there are guardrails here, and there is a way where you can clearly separate for for ChatGPT or the likes of ChatGPT not to learn about it, or even if you do, there are clear demarcation that you can say, forget about me. The challenge is it's very expensive. When you get that part of ChatGPT, then you're losing free part of ChatGPT, right? So if you are so concerned about, hey, I need to be able for this instance of ChatGPT I'm talking to forget about me, you can do it, but the costs are very high. So we use it, the costs are extraordinary.
So I have a different experience. I work quite a lot with OpenAI. I love OpenAI people, and I'm pro OpenAI. But I think it's not very easy, right? Like sometimes if you go there and say that, hey, they need this information, it takes them some time because they don't know exactly which server the data is stored, for how many replications they have. So they give you like an SLA of like, it takes us 10 days to enfold your.
It's not the SLA. It's like you have ChatGPT.com by Pro and you're on it, right? And that does not give you any guardrails whatsoever. And it's written in the fine print. But if you send an email or get a special edition of ChatGPT, deploy it, and go through a very painful process to access it, then it will it does demarcation of your data. And the minute you says delete, it will forget about completely. It's just that the way to do that is very complicated. But from the technical point of view, the guardrails are there in a way.
Because of shared resources, there's a technical reason for that. But obviously, I think the point is if we don't regulate, right, there will be a company that can give you a free ChatGPT with the intention of collecting a good picture of you. And OpenAI is an amazing company, by the way. They do have a lot of concerns. I'm not sure about like the next one, right? Like who knows, right? There need to be a standard.
Google did that.
I think we should also look back some of the note maybe I got something to say. Sunan, hi.
No, I did say anything. Sorry, I think someone else was speaking.
Yeah.
This is Big Chris. I'm part of, or I'm associated with Society for Data Science. So I would like to have views of the panel on two aspects. One is that Mohsin particularly have mentioned that cat is out of the bag. And also I think few days back I was going through some news. In terms of the investment, I think if I'm not wrong, Bill Gates probably mentioned, and this AI bubble is going to burst probably for some time. And what are your views actually in terms of what, for example, Bill Gates had mentioned? That is one. Second is in terms of artificial super intelligence. Okay, how far are we actually from today? In terms of the horizon, any kind of, I'll say, guesstimate, okay, it will take 10 years, 2 years.
More than a decade, decades away from artificial superintelligence. Very quickly answering the point here is, from what's happening in the capital markets, that's a separate thing altogether, right? Like, I think AI agents are doing a lot of great things, but they're being hyped more than what they can actually do. We all know that. This has nothing to do with the tech companies per se, right? But there's a lot of capital going in this basket. And I think it's not really unlikely to see some sort of correction. The fact that each of these companies are now larger than GDP of countries, and how much like they can really like, because OpenAI, amazing, right? Like let's say that Microsoft's amazing, Nvidia is amazing, but the rest of the economy needs to be able to consume those AIs to do something, to build some value, to justify this thing. we already priced all those things in. As a guy who works with a lot of enterprises, I would say that that would take time. So my non-qualified opinion is that there will be a correction. I don't think it will be like a burst as of like this thing was all a sham story, right? Like, but there will be a huge correction because at some future quarter, CEOs will read the numbers and they're like, okay, so you invested this much and what happened exactly? Who is buying it? Like, what are we? And there will be some, I think it's happening with Palantir today, right?
Yeah.
So,
Sell your shares before that.
So I'm Ravi. I work with a bank, HSBC. I take care of their global change and product space. I work with vendors who actually say that, they have AI solutions available, and I'm into innovation. So we are trying to innovate how we sell products to clients. How do we want, clients to come to us? How do we reduce our margins? So everything in that space. And we are out for companies who are, who have AI component as well. And a lot of times I've also seen that vendors actually just put AI there to send to the banks.
Yeah.
And when you go into the detail, it works. Yeah, it works a few times. And when you ask and go into detail, you take them for a beer. They're like, this is just added to, get you.
I asked my chat GPT to add.
Yeah.
So I actually do see that. I see a lot of investor decks, pitch decks from startups. Several of them always say, we need to put AI in, otherwise the investors won't invest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think if you go deep, dig deeper, it's just some chatbots they have, or, some sort of very basic stuff they're working on. So we are also trying to solve a lot of these problems, optimization in the bank. How do we increase our revenue, but still, be able to service our clients in a better way? Happy to hear thoughts as well if anyone's encountered that or is solving this problem for their own within their space.
We can just talk about
I think, in answer to your question. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something, Sanat? Or? Okay. In answer to your question about the bubble, it's a given that the technology foundation is already part of our fabric. So, yeah, there's no bubble there. But I think what the bubble, as Mohsen said, is really the capital being invested. And as you said, investors are on this AI bandwagon and putting hundreds of billions of dollars, pounds into businesses which may never make any revenue. And I think that's where there'll be some, as you say, correction. And I think one of the things last October I was at a conference in Austin, Texas, and one of the articles I wrote from that was, we're all building that AI infrastructure train, but I think what would be quite interesting is there's nobody who can actually say we have a viable business model to make money from this. And I think we're still there where it's very difficult for many of the smaller companies that are invested to actually figure out how to make it a business model that gives them a return on investment.
I finally figured it out after 2 years. So happy to say, after 2 years of non-stop hitting the wall, we figured out how to monetize AI. So.
I mean, there are exceptions, and I'm not saying it's...
But it took 2 years daily, leaving a full-time role, just trying to solve this problem. But,
a lot of people don't understand that, and I think that's the...
It's painful.
Yeah.
You can have a very good product, but it took 2 years to monetize.
But the data point is OpenAI is spending $3 for every dollar of revenue. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at in the past, Uber and, they're all spending more money to get eyeballs. Yeah.
Valuation will not be sustained.
Yeah.
So $5 trillion valuation of NVIDIA and $4 billion value of Microsoft and whatever, the valuations right now, that is not sustainable. So if that is not sustainable, but going forward, the earnings will, and they will not give, because stock market runs at expectation, and expected earnings will never materialize, and then there will be a fall. To make it,
But the real says these things are real, right? Like there will be short-term jitters and those kind of, that's how it works. We are in a hype cycle. I've seen a couple of hype cycles, and I'm not even like that. Like, I remember when computer vision suddenly became a thing, right? Like in 2012, 13, 14 maybe, everybody.
We were doing automatic optical inspection in 1998.
There was this Alex step, and after that, a lot of companies decided to put AI in their cameras, and then everybody was doing like computer vision, object detection, all those kind of things. Amazing things. At some point, startups that could do that went like through the roof, like amazing. But it turns out that has a limited like runway. Like there are certain use cases that you can do with them, and the other thing was that they were not in a very secure mode, right? Like NVIDIA is assumed to be the king of chips, and you can comment on that. I am genuinely interested. What will happen to the valuation if they no longer are the like kings that they are, right? And in that case, market needs to rebalance the capital, right? Like I don't know who's the next guy. Maybe it's an American one, maybe it's Chinese.
I mean, I think everybody's locked into NVIDIA because of the software CUDA ecosystem. But I think there is a real effort by many startups, many more sort of medium-sized companies to figure out how to sort of get your claw into that space. And I think that's where it'll be basically for people who are investing in infrastructure and GPU infrastructure. It'll be a cost-benefit analysis as to where we should be doing this. But I think the other thing is everybody in the data center business now is looking at how do we minimize sort of energy consumption? How do we optimize energy consumption? How do we minimize heat dissipation? That heat. So I think there's a lot now moving towards where can we innovate, and that where can we innovate, when that question gets answered well, that's where NVIDIA will be challenged.
I just want to share one insight that we got, on cost. We as a startup are backed by AMD. Not that I'm saying that because they are. We were NVIDIA, and our cost per instruction was $1.40. We came on AMD right now in 40p down to 5p. The cost of the capital expense and the operations for the first 6 months is extraordinarily high on AMD, because it has nothing to do with the hardware. It's because of the processes, the company, the structural problems of the getting out there. But if you go through that, then AMD by far is similar at par, if not exceeding. The only challenge is you have to build your own software layer.
Which is why
your software layer. We are getting massive, and we are doing, by the way, AI on Edge. We're bringing an array of AI GPUs in stadiums, football stadiums. For personalization. The cost has gone down by 800%. And we are very confident in the next 6 months we will be another 800% of what we have.
What you just confirmed is, what everybody tells me is we go with NVIDIA because of the software, the CUDA. But I think if you get over that hurdle, as you've done with something else, you can actually get your costs down.
The labor cost of getting up and running on NVIDIA is 30 minutes. And we did it. There's a whole case study on IBC events. The labor cost to get on AMD to what you do in 30 minutes in NVIDIA was 8 weeks.
That's a lot.
30 minutes to 8, and very painful 8 weeks. But once you've done that, then you see those 800% drop in your cost.
You should tell Lisa to get the software ecosystem sorted.
It's a point I would draw attention to. I know that there's commentary over here that the capital inflows aren't sustainable. I would actually challenge that basis just on it's mostly cash flows from very profitable companies doing that. I mean, we're starting to see some debt issuances from those large companies now, but it's not just loans and things like that. And to your point, there are other vendors now in the market that are bringing on other hardware that their total cost of ownership is substantially lower than existing players. And energy, that cost is extremely high. That will continue to drive continued demand for new generations of hardware.
Yep.
And to the one other point I would actually make, OpenAI's business model, a lot of these companies are charging the same for input tokens and output tokens. Input tokens compared to output tokens are so much cheaper. They make there's a lot of profit there. Context windows are getting bigger. There's more and more opportunities to make money. If you're not really heavily focused on context engineering, you're going to end up in a scenario where you're just throwing a lot of stuff in there. And these companies love that because they're just making head over heels cash on that. Yeah. And meanwhile, they're riding a technology wave where every single year it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Investors aren't looking at today and thinking, oh, here are the numbers, here the way they are. They're looking 3 years out and they're asking themselves, like Uber and their investors many years ago, is there a world where these lines are going to cross where we can do this very profitably? And I think the answer to that is yes. And that's why you're seeing all these major tech companies, Masamara in Japan, funding these things because they know that the numbers eventually going to head there. And you could just look at it in a technology curve. It's no different than any other piece of technology we've had in the last 4 years.
Throughout history, the cost of technology is always, in my lifetime.
And now knowledge is going to fall.
Exactly.
It's got to transpose into every single industry. It's incredibly disruptive.
I bought my first computer, it was, I don't know what it was. It was £200. That same thing is now probably like $20. Yeah.
Good.
And I do think that, costs are going to, or cost optimization will continue to drive, things up with hardware and software. But one thing that I'm seeing is sort of coming into play and sort of driving towards this, topic of artificial superintelligence is right now we use, words, language, tokens to, have as an input for transformers and AI. And these are inherently human. They're inherently like sentences that we can understand, that we know with the output that they're giving us and we can actually see their reasoning, as they kind of loop through whether, they're answering the question and all that, these other things that they're doing through human words, through sentences. But what is interesting to me and something that Sam Altman, I think, just said like a couple of days ago, I think during an interview, is that he knows that ChatGPT 6 will sort of do something unique that a lot of people say is sort of that snowball going down the mountain effect, where he's going to allow ChatGPT 6 to essentially talk to itself without using human language, using its own machine language to essentially do its own reasoning. There are versions of this like latent reasoning that uses recurrent networks within the architecture of the transformer to do its own sort of internal processing that is not tokenized. It's not language. It's not anything like that. But ultimately, this is a form of saving money because tokens are expensive. Human words are expensive, but producing some kind of encoded language for yourself, that's cheap. And it's going to happen much more cheaply. Largely this becomes more effective. So as I think we're driving towards these optimizations and costs, we're probably going to reach that point where we get into this runaway, this computer sticking for itself in ways that we can't understand situation. And, that might just be that one step towards that, ASI that, like I said, is sort of pushing that snowball down the hill finally, and then it becomes runaway.
Absolutely. And I think that just the way simpler issue is coding as well, right? Like we are now generating codes using AI, and we are, according to Anthropic CEO, they're using AI to generate the AI code for Claude, right? I genuinely think that two things will happen. First of all, probably the language issue, right? They will use some symbolic language that we won't get it that well because the goal will be to transfer more information, whatever. What higher dimensionality than human language? It's imaginable, mathematically imaginable. The second thing is, I genuinely think that humans will get worse in understanding a lot of these things. I would doubt people would remember how to do HTML, CSS in like 5 years. Yeah. Because we were just giving it to, it's like assembly, right? Like how many people now, everybody knows the abstraction on top of, right? So two risks here, like we get lazier and lazier in doing these things ourselves, and probably they will use more optimized way of doing them at some point. I don't know, it kind of works.
the counter argument is it's evolution. Yeah, like we then can do things that, yeah, we want to do.
Depends really like controlling it. So, but and in an ASI world, and I ask this as a question. I don't want to talk about it. I think that the biggest permanently underclass kind of situation, right? Like, how do you distribute wealth if a company has ASI or a country has ASI? Why do they need to, like, it's a good thought experiment, right? I think at some point somebody needs to think about it. Like, not I'm the wrong guy, but if you're the right person,
You know, in the U.S., the operators of companies can be sued if they don't pursue profit as the end-all be-all goal.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that, at least in the West, that the majority of, I think, Anthropic, OpenAI are all PBC, public benefit corporations. But that's just purely out of luck right now. It's not going to take a lot for us to have a company in a few years where they can get to similar points of advancement, and they're just seeking profit for profit's sake.
But that's the case for most of the companies.
But I mean, there's a balance there, right? And if you can all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to sue you, you know, as a shareholder, I have these rights for you to pursue profit because you decided to do something good. We have weird incentives in some of these areas that I think.
No, I know, and the point is how to. If I'm not a shareholder, I'm not associated with AI. How are you going to transfer wealth to, like? It's a serious question, right? Like it's not an easy question, and it's a question.
There's one other thing which I think doesn't quite receive as much attention in the public discourse as it ought to, which is that while there's no doubt about the power of the technology and the pace at which the technology is evolving and maturing, if this technology is going to be as powerful as people claim it will be eventually, and if it is capable of doing dramatically good things which human beings can't do, but equally dramatically bad things which a human being in their right mind will not want to do, who and how is going to bell the cat in terms of ensuring that ASI, AGI, whatever, are going to be instilled with the right human value? And there's simply no answer to that. There's simply no answer to that, right? And these are the things which unfortunately today are not getting attention in the midst of the hype around the technology itself. And going back to the comments I made at the start, I worry about these things because, you know, if you don't find a way to combat the bad side of the behavior with sufficient guardrails, then the good side to my mind is inconsequential.
There's a good illustration of what you said. I watched a movie on Netflix just a few days ago. It's a movie based in a very small village in Jharkhand in India, and it's called Humans in the Loop. And it's about these Adivasis doing data labeling and how when they ask for a beautiful Indian tribal woman, it gives an American Indian. And so, she goes and labels data from her own daughter's camera to put that in there, and then it gives a tribal woman from Jharkhand.
100%. Excellent.
You know, I think another comment there, what I would call this thing attachment in some of you, I think that was treaty. There's small studies that are, larger studies that are going to come out highlighting in industries that are easily automated by AI, customer service. They're already starting to see a drop-off and entry-level front end. And historically, you have an unemployment paradigm that's, a pyramid. People build experience, they work their way up the ladder, and as they do so, they gain, the economic benefits of that. We're starting to see a talent inversion problem where you're going to have so many less people entering some of these spaces that those same individuals are not going to have the opportunities to ride the career ladder, which is a whole other set of issues. I mean, I think today it's not something we talk about, but if we jump ahead in years, there's going to be a talent shortages at certain tiers of companies just from the reality that they didn't have to hire those people. I experienced this problem today.
Yeah.
I would struggle to hire somebody in certain junior roles just because the reality is a more senior person could go talk to an LLM and generate it just as fast as they could do the feedback round. If we hire a junior person, it's probably because we actually enjoy, in part, the opportunity to mentor them, but it's not necessarily economically sensible.
And when Instagram was sold to Facebook, Instagram had only 13 employees.
17, I think, or something, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, the question is, it's the embracing of AI. Some people, I mean, social inequity of income is going to increase massively because some people will make $1 billion very quickly.
That's what NVIDIA has done.
Which is a double-edged sword. I think very billions for some people was very few.
Yeah.
I'll put, I didn't say that introduced stuff before, so I have two hats that are relevant. There's one is I support partnerships with universities that are schools of informatics, and particularly I support the Centers for Doctoral Training in Natural Language Processing. And the newer one of those is focused on designing responsible natural language processing. So throughout this conversation, there are different questions about the guardrails from a technical standpoint, but then as well policy and ethics. And so we're actually recruiting, not that that's my job, but we're recruiting. So if anyone's interested in PhD for fall of 2026, check out the Responsible NLP Center for Doctoral Training at the University of Edinburgh. And the other is I also have a startup that I've been building for the last year. We're partners with Sapash's Tech Tuesdays, and we focus on automating feedback to insights. So taking like customer satisfaction and streamlining, turning that into reporting. But I just wanted to put something else on the table a little bit, which is going back to kind of the way that these technologies shape us. So we've been this infinite thread we've talked about, and the societal implications for that. But, given the theme of this talk was around superintelligence, I think it's worth thinking about not only how these tools can create biological weapons or whatever, this is kind of the traditional way, but also thinking about how these tools can influence us and change our perceptions. And we already have so much misinformation that's being created, and now that's being supercharged. And if a super intelligent AI were to emerge, you can think about how this could it perhaps create a perception that it's a new God, right? So there's all kinds of really interesting theological writings that are coming out, and not only looking from the technical standpoint, but society, how people are so susceptible to what we see, scams and all of this stuff. So I just thought I'd put it on the table.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, AI is, whether it is AI, super AI, AGI, it is a double-edged sword. And for, as the first intent, if it is bad, it can be cut stuff bad.
Good. So that brings us to the end of this particular episode. We started this with the topic artificial superintelligence, but I can only say one particular word from the entire topic, which is super. This was indeed a super discussion. Before I wrap, and given that we have a few more minutes left, maybe a quick sort of fast one to all the panel members. If I ask each one of you to just share one thought you would like to see, like to see happen with regards to ASI, application of artificial superintelligence, what would that be?
I'm the technical guy. Mechanistic interpretability, I think it's a good thing, right? Like I want to see us understanding how these models actually make the decisions that they make, and before we make ASI, we master that art, because although it's not a real black box, but they don't really understand how these things really work, and that kind of gives us more nervousness. So that's smart.
Thank you.
To know that HCL is saying they don't know how it's working.
Nitin, over to
Makes
you.
me feel better when I talk to the other partners.
I've always been a technologist, so I'm always in awe of everything that's happening. I'm actually with Vabes, which basically I want to see it being put to good use as personalized assistance or something that helps people in their daily lives without making them
dumber.
You can.
Correct. Thanks. Sanat, over to you.
I'm going to be a damn squib, Ash, as you bring this to a close. I don't want ASI. I think there are too many open questions. I don't think anyone has a clue, and it becomes so theoretical that it goes into the realm of improbable. So I'm not looking forward to it.
Oh, well, that's still an opinion.
I'm not saying that there won't be anything good out of it. I'm saying that today it's fantasy.
Yeah, thank you.
Got it. Thanks. So great. Thanks to each one of you, to all the panel members. Thanks to the wonderful audience we have here for coming this. I know there's some bit of issues with the trains, but that won't stop us from continuing the discussion. And before I wrap up, a couple of quick things. Of course, as I said in the beginning, we have a tradition of taking bites. So a lot of people who joined this time for the first time, and the ones who are joining for the second or third or fourth end time, please stay back. We'll sort of get in touch. Hang around, enjoy your drinks. We'll get in touch and request you for your bites. A quick one on the next couple of episodes. On the 18th of November, Tech Tuesday Extra is back with the topic Connected Vehicles, which is happening at GSMA Innovation Foundry. For your knowledge, as you know, GSM Innovation Foundry is one of our partners. Their office is right other side of the road, which is near Bank Station. On the 2nd of December, Tech Tuesday UK is taking place again at GSM Innovation Foundry. This time the topic is the promise of 6G. Of course, for more information for the future episodes, as well as the past episodes, please visit our YouTube link or our website, which is www.techtuesdays.uk. One more thing, on the 20th of November, I'm delivering a keynote at the titled CFO's Playbook, Scaling Operations to Driving Valuation, which is an exclusive invite-only roundtable organized by Oracle, HCL Tech, and Airwallex. I don't think. In case you are interested to attend, please get in touch with me. This is primarily aimed for startups who are looking to scale, technology startups looking to scale globally. And yes, to know more about today's episodes, as with the forthcoming ones, please follow us across all our touch points, which is LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, et al. Thank you once again for being here. Enjoy the drinks and have a safe journey back home. Thank you.
Thank you.